Good evening and welcome to the Bob and Kevin Show. Tonight we're going to finish a discussion we had briefly on Monday morning during our On the Clock segment. In fact, I think we'll probably roll tape on that to get us a good jump off point. Just hit it. So put on your groovy mood lighting, grab your favorite beverage, and join us for an evening chat about the super sexy world of Secure Socket Layer, also known as SSL.
All right, Bob, way to prime the show there, and I will do my best here to...
That was a shit ton of alliteration right there.
It was. Good job. I'm glad you got through because I would have definitely choked on it. All right, so what are we doing tonight, Bob?
SSL. I've got dumb questions and you've got super informed answers.
Let's go with you've got normal questions people would ask, and I've got answers that I think I have somewhat of an idea on, but we'll have fact checkers call me out in the comments if I'm totally off. So
these are actual Bob questions, by the way, too. These are not made up or fished for on the internet. I need to learn more about this, and so maybe we should just hit the tape.
All right. So, yeah, I'm not sure how long it was. Oh, it looks like it's 2 minutes. So this is going to be weird because this is like Mystery Science Theater 3000 where we can, like, make fun of ourselves here. So
crush your head.
All right, here we go. All right, so we've got Chrome is going to update, and a lot of us saw this coming, basically. If you don't have HTTPS,
Bob, I just realized
you're going to be labeled as not secure.
not able
I
to
think
hear
this is
this
great.
very
What do you
well.
think, Bob?
I think it's great. I'm also very grateful that we have until July because, you know, there's some of us have a lot of sites to get moved over to this. Big questions for me is, you know, if a $15 certificate or a free certificate can get it done, then why isn't it just part of the infrastructure, period?
Yes.
Why does it have to be customer responsibility?
So I'm really searching for answers here. Kind of the larger.
You didn't see that one coming, did you?
I didn't because the private key needs to be held privately by the organization, because a PKI or public key infrastructure setup is you have a public key and a private key, and you don't want anyone but the owner of the website or the other distant end to have anything. Nobody can have that private key, so Google can't have that private key. So the public key.
But a third party is going to have it, though. I mean, if you go to a third party SSL generation site, generate the key, that key exists somewhere for them too, right?
But no, they should not have a copy of it. That's what. Here's your copy, and you have the only one, and they can verify. That there's a trust system in place. Wow, you totally threw me a curveball. Those ones. Okay, I wouldn't advocate that.
Here, everybody.
Just is HTTPS because
just setting the stage.
Some technical issues there. However, I would say that I would never, ever, ever, ever willingly have a non-SSL site if at all possible, because we got Let's Encrypt, which is free. We've got Cloudflare, which has free aspects to it, and we have, you can just go buy the frickin' thing for $10 off of your, drive-by thing. Okay, next. Okay, all right. So that was possibly the most confusing thing for me to watch myself twice on the screen there, but whatever.
So we basically got done with recording on Monday, and we decided, wow, we really left a lot on the table when it came to SSL, because I totally got us sidetracked on why isn't it just everywhere already? And Kevin explained to me why. And we never really talked about, what the implications are. I mean, we're basically, not to steal the name of our segment, but as developers, we're on the clock. Google has basically come out and said, as of the version that's coming out, and I don't remember the number. Is it like 68? I don't know, but it's coming out in July. So come July, we're going to get that nice little, ding up in the address bar that it's not secure, because anything that's a form, including logins, is going to be, it's already sent in the clear. So that's, Kevin, correct me if I'm wrong, that's why we need the SSL in the first place?
Well, so we should SSL all the things, because in the beginning, if I'm going to send something over the wire, so to speak, from computer A to computer B, and I have Wireshark or something like that, I can just watch, literally see Wireshark tell me, oh, well, that looks like a password, that looks like a username. What comes next is probably the password, and so on and so forth. Now there's a bunch of trivial shit that we don't care about because it's, the payload, so to speak. And, so once we can sniff these things out, and because of HTTP protocol, it's all in a very structured format, and we can easily go, well, here was that, here's the GET request, here's the image coming down, and so on and so forth. So without SSL, you're on port 80, which is the traditional web. Maybe we should get rid of port 80. That's the side thing there. And so what is SSL though? SSL is a tunnel. So computer A to computer B, if I can sniff that because it's in the clear, and now I create an encrypted tunnel between the two, I can still sniff the wire, but now all I get's gobbledygook. My next task is to take the gobbledygook and go, okay, what does this mean? And I can use brute force and things like that to try to break it. But it takes so long to break that by time you break it, the information is now hopefully meaningless. Now, your username and password doesn't change that much, but it takes a very, 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 very long time to brute force something like SSL. Not impossible, but impossible enough where we're prolonging. Of course, I'm sure Troy Hunt, the omnipresent, ubiquitous security expert of the world, may tell me, if you use a GPU, blah, 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 you can accelerate these things. Anyway, everything should be SSL. And speaking of Troy, he's got some great, blog posts about how, there's a lot of myths with security and whatnot. Well, you only need it if you're using a form. Well, you only need it if this, or if you're doing that. If there's nothing sensitive on this page, and so on and so forth. So those myths are, they are myths, and I totally agree with Troy. And so he's not saying that that's legit. He's saying that these are myths, and most of that or all of that is not true. Fact checkers, by the way, you're on the clock. If I say anything weird, I don't know, get a hold of me somehow.
Well, all right. So, So you bring it up. So I got a pin in a bunch of different things already. But so if there's no data collection on your site, if it's 100% marketing, it's bad form. It's bad form if you don't have, like a contact us, a call to action type thing. But let's say you don't. Let's just say it's a 100% billboard site that you're not collecting any information on. Why SSL all the things?
All right. So, Bob, you're at your computer. You open up Chrome. You visit baty-barr.com or whatever your website is.
That's baty-barr.com, BATY-BARR.com.
See, I got a fact checker that I'm talking to. All right. So, your computer is going to make that request to the server where it's hosted, right?
Yep.
It's going to say, hey, I need the homepage, if that's what I'm requesting. And it returns it back. And if I am a nefarious person, I can be a rogue state. I can just be the proverbial 400-pound guy on the couch.
I do get a lot of Russian traffic to the site, just saying.
It's fair. When the server responds, I can say, you know what? This is going to traverse the public internet. Why don't I watch for this traffic that's between Bob and the server, and I can become the man in the middle. The man in the middle could then say, oh, you know what? Let me alter this return message back to Bob, even though it's just marketing material, but I can change the price. I can say, I hate a certain ethnic group. I can turn this into very bad, very quick.
So that encryption encrypts everything that comes back from the server, not just communication between a server-side piece of scripting and the client.
Everything. So are you familiar with the OSI model? Open source interconnect model.
Nope.
It's 7-layer sandwich. I'm going to attempt to explain all of them. So we're going to start at layer 1. That is the physical layer. That is wires. So in the Army, when something went bad, we always said, did you check the physical layer? Basically, is the Ethernet cable plugged in? Is the computer turned on? Okay, physical stuff. Layer 2 is going to be your media access, which is a switch, right? So a switch has MAC addresses. So physical layer operates with electricity. Layer 2 is MAC addresses, and these all interconnect. It's going to be a stack here. Layer 3 is IP addresses. Layer 4 is transport. This is where SSL lives. Layer 5 is session. Layer 6 is presentation. Almost got that wrong. And level 7 is application layer. So that's your networking sandwich. So, you know, if you take any Cisco classes, that's your sandwich. SSL operates at layer 4. And layer 4 is your TCP IP layer also.
Right. So pretty much from your switch, modem, blah, 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 to the end resource.
Yeah.
The presentation of the end resource.
Yeah, so I had to look up the other day, and it's still fuzzy. What exactly is the presentation layer? Because when I hear presentation layer as a developer, I'm like, oh, it's the UI, but I would be wrong. It's well, shoot, I would have to look it up again. So fact checkers, you can.
No worries. No worries.
All right. So bottom line, so if I create SSL tunnel on layer 4, the transport, I send a packet with an IP address to your computer, and everything inside is gobbledygook. I don't even know if the domain is exposed of the server that we're going to talk about that because that has to do with SNI later. So I know that you want to do something. I don't even know if it's a GET request, a POST request, nothing. I don't even know what the URL is. All I know is this packet goes to you, and my payload, what it's trying to say, I'm not going to tell you. So that makes things much harder. So if I take away that tunnel, immediately you can say, oh, well, it's a GET request for a Bob's profile picture. Don't care about that one. This one is another image. This one is a font. Don't care. Ooh, this one is an authentication request. Let me just record that. Well, if I encrypt everything in SSL, I don't know which packets, because the way TCP IP works is it says, okay, I need to send 100K to your computer. Let me break it up into little packets. And TCP works on the principle that I guarantee everything will make it there, where UDP is the opposite. So, well, I hope it gets there. And that's what we're doing right now. We're doing UDP. Voice and video. VoIP is your classic example of UDP. So anyway, yes, back to the original question. Even if it's a marketing site, you should be using or using SSL. It prevents man-in-the-middle attacks, because how do you know that you're actually communicating with your own blog? You don't, unless you have something, a secure tunnel that guarantees the integrity the whole way. Because again, we're not just connecting Bob's computer over his LAN to the computer in the closet back there. We're going over the public internet where everyone has a chance to inspect and sniff, and let me tell you, they will.
Okay, so here's another thing. All right, because this just came up today, actually. I saw people posting about the ability to create a keylogger with CSS. So would SSL protect in that situation, or is that actually at the client level before it would be encrypted by SSL, like in some weird ether layer in between these layers?
Well, first off, I haven't heard about the CSS keylogger, and that sounds, I mean, boom, mind blown if that's in fact true. So maybe you can shoot me that link. We can do a visual here. So SSL only guarantees that there's a secure. We got to also define secure connection. It just says that the person I'm talking to is the person I'm talking to. It doesn't guarantee anything other than that. So SSL doesn't guarantee that the person on the other end that you're connected to isn't still malicious. Because let's say, Bob, you have SSL on your site, and I have the little lock here, and it doesn't say not secure. You could be a malicious site, but it's using SSL. We could be recording. You're using, we could be a phishing site and whatnot. Let me see what you're sending me over here. Are they two links? Which one do we want to be looking at?
They are two, but it looks like they take you to about.
Oh, Hacker News. Oh, I don't know anything about what you sent me here. So is this some sort of?
Yeah, it came from a tweet. Here, I'll send you the tweet.
Okay, it looks like it uses it in conjunction with JavaScript. So, I mean, my gut reaction tells me no, CSS isn't possible. There's no such thing as state management, and you can't send something off like an AJAX request with CSS. So I could see how you would use JavaScript to do that. I mean, that's a very common thing, nefarious thing to do in JavaScript, but I don't see that. So yeah, not buying that one right away. Using pure, the somebody says it's using pure CSS. I don't think so. And then does
yeah, it's actually looking for an input type equals password.
Okay.
It says, for example, the following CSS will select all inputs with a type that equals password and a value that ends with A. It would then try to load an image from localhost 3000/A. So what is that doing?
All right. So, but let's get back on track here. Would SSL prevent this? No, it would not.
Okay, that was my question.
Okay.
All right. So we have a reason for SSL, and then within the last 24 hours, somebody posts information about how maybe that is not even a guarantee. Okay, so we've defined a little bit about what SSL is. You had mentioned IP addresses, right? When we were talking about things like it's, IP to IP protocol. So one of the questions that I have as a developer back in the day when adding SSL to a site was quite a pricey venture. One of the other things that made it an expensive transaction, not just, I mean, I'm talking monetary transaction here, is you have to have a dedicated IP.
Yes.
Is that still the case?
That can be the case, but there's ways around it. So,
this is the SNI stuff.
This is what SNI is.
Okay.
So if you have just Joe Blow's server out there hosted in your closet behind you, you're going to need probably an IP address per SSL, and it's just going to be untenable for you.
Well, what if you're hosted in a shared hosting environment?
Okay. So SNI, so I use Azure almost exclusively, allows you to use the host name, I believe, or some sort of CNAME, some sort of name to say, okay, rather than look at the IP address to see if this is legit, or because it's basically a request comes in, we need to match up. Okay, we've got 100 websites on this server, and somebody just came in here. How do I match the public key to the right server? How do we do this? Because traditionally, you're right, it's with IP address. So with SNI, it uses like the host name or something like that. Again, fact checkers, you can hose me and if I get this wrong, but I use it all the time, so it definitely works like this on some level. Here's the problem with SNI, and it talks about the background of the problem right here. SNI, like, so if we talk about that layer cake, the OSI model, layer 4, we're talking TCP IP packets at this point. I don't have a host name yet because the host name is probably part of the payload. Hey, I need website XYZ. Well, that's now encrypted. So I believe what TLS enabled here is we can actually see what host it is destined for. So we can do host-based routing of sorts rather than IP-based routing to match up the SSL certs. Does that make any more sense?
It does, and it kind of dovetails into one of my next questions too. So if you are in an IIS environment and you have multiple sites going to one IP address, because your NIC resources are limited, so you have a fixed IP address to that NIC card, and you're running several IIS websites all on that same, like all unused IP type situation, or the one fixed IP that you have for that device. So then how would you bind multiple SSL certificates? Would it be also through that SNI kind of idea?
So here's what you're thinking like a normal sane person. I'm looking at IIS, and I'm looking at this drop down, and it's making me pick one. Kevin, what do I do? I have multiples. What do I do? I don't know the answer to that question, because here's what I do. I use Azure, and through the portal, it says, oh, you have an SSL? Would you like to use SNI? Okay, well, then we don't have to talk about IP address. Next. That's basically how it works.
Right. Okay, so that's an awesome solution for people who are hosting in Azure. But what about like smaller mom and pop or in-house hosting, or those kind of situations where you do have a line coming from the switch going to a physical box that's got one NIC card and one IP address.
So this is where I'm responsible enough, hopefully, to say I don't know.
Okay.
And so,
but I think that's a real world concern for, and I think we started to talk about this a little bit before the show and we cut each other off, is that if you're an independent contractor and you're wearing all those hats where you're a web developer and you know a little bit about networking and you work with a small hosting provider or work with a shared hosting provider, and you're coming up to this situation where everyone's got to be HTTPS, and you, over the course of your career, let's say, have developed 60, 70, 100 websites that are all hosted in small shared hosting environments around the globe. How do you handle this?
That would be a great thing to research. I would start with, well, maybe you can't, and maybe it's a certain version of Windows, and I'm sure somebody from Microsoft immediately know the answer, or somebody who's more tuned to it. I unfortunately have the easy out to say, well, Azure supports it, and it just works fine, and go Azure. So yeah.
So all you kids out there running on small hosts, check out that Azure pricing.
Speaking of pricing,
migrating your stuff.
Let's talk about. So I am a bit of a absolutist when it comes to SSL. I think it's so cheap these days that not running SSL is dangerous.
All right. So why is it getting so cheap now? Where 5-10 years ago, your base certificate was $99 a year.
Okay. So Troy Hunt's got this blog here, and I want to give him full credit here. And he starts the blog with, here's all the certificate authorities. And Bob, are you familiar with certificate authorities? They're the ones. Yes. Okay, so they're the ones.
VeriSign.
Yeah, and they're on the list actually down here. VeriSign, and then you got Komodo up here, and so and then there's GoDaddy. So for those who maybe aren't aware, these are the people that tell you whether or not an SSL cert is legit or not, or it's revoked or not. And if you, as a developer, if you've ever gotten that screen that says, "Hey, we're trying to use SSL, but it doesn't seem, it looks self-signed or something like that. Do you want to proceed anyway? Danger zone, danger." It's because the certificate you're using is either not on file with these guys, or there's like a hierarchy, a tree. So your cert points to maybe an issuing authority, which points eventually to one of these root authorities here. So the reason that they cost money is because these guys are not in business for nothing, right? So
but how come they've come down so much, though?
Because there's competition like Let's Encrypt and Cloudflare. So, but you're tipping my hand too fast. So let's kind of rewind. Let's look at traditional. So this is just Namecheap, no endorsement here. But if you want you want to buy it, it's $8.88 a year for an SSL.
Okay, so why is Positive half the price of Essential?
We could look into details, but
because back in the day, the price used to be heavily tied to how many of those root signing authorities recognized the certificate. So you could always get like an off, not like an off brand, but like an off market, like a cheaper certificate. However, you could still run into situations where the browser is like, no, this isn't legit.
Okay. I can't go that deep with you, but what I can do is, you ever go to?
You agree that that's kind of bullshit, though, right?
Oh, of course. Well,
okay.
Troy Hunt. So I have a man crush on Troy. I'm gonna invoke his name a lot.
I wish we had a heart graphic that could come up on the screen right now.
That's right. He's got a bunch of, he calls bullshit, for lack of a better term, on some of these. See, this one's an EV, $78. And you get a green bar. What does the green bar mean? Let me detach here. See how in Chrome right here, you got this right here, and it's green, and it makes it feel more safe. And then your banks have those. You can pay for that, but as Troy will explain to you, does that make it any safer? Does that mean it's using super duper encryption? And the answer is no.
So it's still $256.
it's still the same level of encryption that you're probably going to get for the $8.88 here. Again, fact checkers. I'm pretty sure I'm tracking how all this works. What this will do is it gives you extra uber duper confidence with the green, you as in the consumer. However, it costs you because as you notice here, let me see if I can make it larger for.
I so hate this.
Here. Paperwork is necessary with this level of security. These extra layers produce the green address bar and immediate assurance, blah, blah, blah. Because what does this do is that I can buy a SSL cert without sending any paperwork in whatsoever.
Right. And so you could pretend to be somebody else and be secure.
I can.
In theory.
I could buy, say, a misspelling of Microsoft or whatnot,
Right.
and use it for phishing sites. Then people go, "Oh, look, it's SSL. It must be safe." Just kind of, it's just part of the whole psychology of things. However, with this one, they have a real human body do extra bit of work.
Right. You verify that you're a business and you're DBAing as that name, and you send your paperwork that says you really are that entity.
That's correct. And typically when you buy an SSL, it's for one domain. So for the lay user, foo.bar.com is different from bar.com in terms of security domains. You can't use the bar.com SSL on foo.bar.com unless it's a wildcard, which costs you a lot more. That means any subdomain of this domain is good to go. So there's all different ways to confuse you, basically, I think, and there's a lot of FUD, I think Troy calls it, basically fear or something. Gosh, I'm totally messing up. It's fear mongering. Well, the more I spend, it must be better. So yeah, we better buy this more expensive one because there's got to be something wrong with this one. Well, I can tell you, I've bought this one and it works just fine on my personal site. So this is traditional. I've
actually purchased SSLs like that and then couldn't get them installed on sites. And then there's like a year gone. Poof.
Well, so what's really confusing me, and I don't know the perfect answer, is when you install a cert on a IIS machine versus say a Linux box and things like that, they are in different file formats, and that gets really confusing. And you sometimes got to use like OpenSSL to convert keys from one to the other. And it is a very confusing
some hosting providers have their own UI for installing the certificate.
Yeah, and so for Windows, it's a .pfx file, which I think includes both the public and the private key, where like a PEM file is just the private key on Linux, and you can separate them into two separate files, the public key and the private. It gets really confusing if you do it like once every so often, which, to be honest, we only do it once every so often, and then we go long enough where we start to forget. Wait, what? Shoot, how do we do that again? So I can understand it's confusing. So wouldn't it be great, Bob, if there were a better way?
I'm going to go with yes.
All right.
Is there a better way?
So yes and no, and that's probably not the answer we all want to hear.
And this part of the episode is not brought to you by Let's Encrypt. We're just talking about it now. So here we go.
Usually a yes and no is like a 50-50. So let's go with a yes, yes, no. So it's a 66-33 proposition here. So this is a yes, yes, no to your answer. Let's Encrypt is a free automated open certificate authority. So they are
How is it free?
Okay.
We just left a site where you have to pay for this product. How is this free?
Well, they have sponsors who help make this free, because at the end of the day, what does an SSL certificate look like from it's a file. It's two files. It's like got so many bits in it. That's all it is. Here's your key. Now it's not just any random thing. It's a public key and a private key, and they're mathematically and cryptographically related to each other. So it's important that they're generated, but they can be generated quickly, fast, and easily. But
can I pose a quick question before we move too deep into this?
Yes.
Is this going to be, now that this is pretty much a requirement, is this going to be like IP addresses and things like that? Or are they going to run out of, because they are a specific length, each one of these keys, right?
No, I don't think so. So like if you look at a GUID, there's like 4 billion GUIDs. And so I don't think so. Fact checkers will keep. I mean, there's somebody.
Not that much.
There's somebody's going, okay, we're using a key space of 512 bits or whatever it is right now, and when they run out of that, now we're using a key space of 1024. Right. I don't think we're going to be bound by it. IP addresses are different because They have 4 octets, and they can only go from 0 to 255. There's a finite number, and it's a very small space. However, with things like NAT, network address translation, we only have one public IP on the public, at the headquarters, and then everything downstream is now a private IP. So we found a way to kind of fake the funk, and we also have IPv6, which has been coming for the last, I don't know,
20 years,
10 years, yeah, whatever.
at least 10.
Just like XML is now going to replace HTML, right? One day. Wait, that was.
So now wait a second.
25 years
Okay,
ago.
so I'm sorry I keep going down the rabbit hole here, but so we have back in the day. I keep going back in the day because that's kind of where I really cut my teeth and got really bitter about this whole SSL thing. So you just mentioned the IP addresses and the limited number. So hosting providers used to be allocated blocks of IP addresses that they could even dole out to their customers. And they were restricting the number that could even be acquired. So if we go back to, what's that 3-letter acronym?
FUD?
No.
Oh.
The protocol that allows multiples to go to a single.
Oh, NAT?
Yeah, but there was something we talked about earlier. I should have probably jotted it
SNI?
down. SNI, thank
Okay.
you. So does that alleviate some of the IP pressure?
Probably. I'm pretty sure IPv4 addresses are still in scarce supply.
Right.
Also haven't read up on what's the current score of that ball game anytime soon. I know there's IPv6, and God help you if you need to.
For just personal devices right now.
Yeah, I don't know. We have. Excuse me, I'm burping up dinner. We have mobile devices, and they have their own device IDs. I'm not sure how the cellular networks are addressing things. Device IDs like a MAC address. Do they have the same OSI amount? I don't know, but what I can tell you is, shoot. I don't know what I lost my train of thought.
But lost my train of thought.
Yeah, thank you. That's what I can tell you, Bob. So let's encrypt. Can we continue on with that?
Yeah,
Okay.
Sorry, I just have so many questions.
That's all right. So I was looking through here, and that's a lot of cool major sponsors and donors. But there's a few, or at least one notable one that's not on this list. Bob, can you spot the one that should be on this list that seems to be missing?
Well, I was gonna say Cisco, but I see Cisco.
And I will give you a hint. It rhymes with Microsoft.
Yeah, I was going there.
So I don't see it on the list, but I can tell you this works with Azure.
But
So-
they're not in the script. They're not in the SSL business, though. Why would they not back it?
Microsoft seems to be in every business, at least 10 years after the fact. So, so full disclosure, when I learned of Let's Encrypt, I'm like, that sounds awesome. Let's do it. And then I went here to their website, and let's go ahead and do it. Let's say get started. So I've done SSLs before where you go to IIS, you create the certificate request, then you check out and $10, at least here, this is basically how that works, and then you get an SSL back. Well, when I went here, I was expecting a similar experience. Here's my CSR, and I get an SSL back, and thank you, it was free, this is awesome. And then I got, what is this?
Yeah, I'm totally lost looking at that.
What is this? My eyes are crossed, and I'm a nerd. And I know command line. What is this? How does this? What is going on here? And then they got this hosting providers. Okay, cool. Hosting provider. What am I supposed to do with this? So you'll see a theme here. The theme is Let's Encrypt is free, and it's amazing, and it's almost impossible to use.
Not very accessible. Now, I will tell you that I've used this argument with other people, and they're like, no, it's super easy. You just do this, this, and this. And that is so frustrating to someone who doesn't think like that person that's telling them.
And I will completely empathize with you, because I went here, my boss, Tom, he's like, oh, yeah, I tried Let's Encrypt. It's great. I'm like, okay,
Wait,
cool.
You're allowed to mention your boss's name?
Tim,
Moving right
my boss, Tim.
Moving right along.
All right. He's like, yeah, I'm using it. It's great. And so I'm like, okay, cool. for our next site that the site I'm working on, let's use Let's Encrypt. And I come here and I'm just like, oh my God. What's going on?
Is Microsoft Azure on that list?
It's not. And that's what just totally freaked me out. I'm like, this is an Azure site. How the hell are we supposed to use this? Turns out the way this works underneath is you have you need some sort of bot or some sort of agent. They call it an agent that talks to Let's Encrypt servers or talks to something, and then it gets you an SSL based on some information, and it's only good for 90 days. And
I'm just not seeing that this is anything. This is awful.
Well, it sounds awful, and it's an awful experience until you do it your first time.
But who do you pay to write the agent for you that does the re-enrollment?
Okay.
So it's not a free certificate.
We'll get there, Bob. We'll get there. So it's 90 days. Okay. And after 90 days, your cert's going to go away. To contrast that, if you're just going to fork over some money, you get a year, 2 years, whatever. So that was the second thing that threw me. Wait, 90 days? What is this?
Wait. So they have a pay option though, or no?
Let's Encrypt?
Yes.
No, they do not.
Okay. So it's only a free 90-day certificate.
So what you need to do is a paradigm shift. Instead of going, okay, every year I'm going to get a new SSL, I'm going to go to some user interface, perform some sort of transaction, and get an SSL and upload. That actually doesn't happen with Let's Encrypt, and it took me forever to grok that. So 90 days, this agent automatically talks to Let's Encrypt and gets you a new cert. And then in 90 days, it does it again and again and again. So once you set this up once, it's set it and forget it. That's for all you Ronco late night people. Anyway.
I've heard that a million times. I'm very skeptical here. Very skeptical.
So what does it take? Here. Thanks for asking the question, Bob. What does it take to get this shit set up?
Sorry, I'm so frustrated. I can't even ask the question. I'm like, all I hear is pain and balls. That's all I.
So I Googled this. That's my next natural reaction because I didn't want to ask Tom, the boss. I mean Tim. I didn't want to hold my hat in front of me and with my tail between my legs and go, I have no idea what I'm doing. Can you please help me? So I Google it, right? Because his time is valuable. And then as I start scrolling, because I don't read anything typically right away, I just want the answer. So I'm scrolling and I'm already going, oh God, clone a repo.
Where's the all caps solved in front of the title?
Exactly. Where's the selected answer? And then I get, I'm like, okay, I see a bunch of commands. Let's encrypt on IIS. Oh my gosh, I don't have IIS. I have Azure. Oh, finally, here it is. And I just realized you can't see what I'm seeing here. All right, let's start back over. So we've got these command lines, and we got this Let's Encrypt on IIS, but we're not using IIS on Azure. We're using Azure on Azure. And so we get to this part right here, and it says Let's Encrypt on Azure, and I'm like, finally. It's going to be a simple answer. And by the way, there's your SNI right there. See how that's part of your billing plans. Yeah. So, okay. So first things first is on Azure, you have to pick a plan that at least has SNI because the free tier does not have that.
Oh, so all of a sudden this free SSL is costing you money.
But it's not because of Let's Encrypt. It's because of Azure says, oh, we're not going to let you do SNI for free.
No, dude, this is all a freaking money grab. The reason why Microsoft's name's not on there is because they know that you got to buy that plan.
Now, full disclosure, early on, you used to have to pay for each SNI. And so even though you got 5, you had to pay for each or whatever. Now, their billing changes all the time. Fact checkers, you can hose me again if now the free instance allows you to have SNI. But I don't think it does. And I don't want to load my Azure portal here because I don't want to leak all my information here on live stream. But anyway.
But if you're on SSL, you'll be fine.
Let's see. Which way do I punch? Oh, wait. This way. Up. Okay. All right. In the words of David Neal this week, I'm going to FedEx you a face punch. So
I saw that one. That was good.
Okay. Moving on. So I'm starting to look through here. I'm skimming. I just want to know the answer. All right. Yeah. Just how does it work? One easy step. And then you get going and you're like, wait a second. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, God. There's more texty command looking things. Oh God, now what?
No, I'm weeping
And
inside.
What is this? And oh my gosh, and I'm gonna need that and this and this. Oh
You
my
saw me
gosh.
struggling today. There's no way I could handle this.
Okay, so I got through this, but it took me a long time. So let's.
And that's not even writing the agent. That's just getting the damn thing installed.
So
right?
here's the good news for you: you don't have to write an agent, Bob.
Okay.
If you're using Azure. In fact, you don't have to use an agent if you're using most of these providers. The problem is what happens if my provider is not on the list? What happens if I have mom and pop? Guess what? You're gonna write your ass a agent or find one on GitHub, and then figure out all the particulars. But anyway, back on task here. So
all for low price of free.
I figured this out. So remember Kudu, right? So Kudu is the SCM, or what, I don't even know what SCM stands for, but I know what Kudu is.
Super cool management console.
Hey, I'll go with that. So you can add an extension to Kudu, which I didn't know until this. So it shows what I don't know. So if you
I didn't know Kudu was extensible.
I didn't either.
Nice.
So you can have a plugin for Kudu is essentially what we're doing here. And so you got to add the Let's Encrypt plugin, but unfortunately, it's not run by Microsoft. It's run by SJKP, whoever that is. I'm sure he or she is a lovely person or organization. Hopefully
some Joe knowledgeable person, SJKP.
Hopefully not state run. But so what you want to do is you want to install this.
Wait, so let's just hit the pause button for a second. Okay. So we're buying an SSL certificate. No, we're not buying an SSL certificate.
Not buying
it for free.
Get it free.
We're putting on Azure.
And you haven't got it free yet, by the way.
We're running a plugin by a developer that we don't necessarily know who that developer is, yet we're entrusting the installation of our SSL certificate and renewal on a 90-day basis to this SJKP.
So far, so good, right? Okay.
All right. Just making sure I'm tracking here. Okay.
Yes. So in my humble opinion, because this is not Microsoft, this is a risk. But it's a risk I'm willing to take on to some degree.
I really did not see this episode going this way. This is pretty amazing, by the way, just for reference.
All right. So when you install this, so there's a couple options. There's actually, you're going to see Azure Let's Encrypt, and then you're going to see another one. One of them uses web jobs. One of them does not. So when you add this, it actually creates a web job. So this is your agent. This is you installing your agent on Azure. And
Azure question, is a web job something you also would pay for potentially?
Yes. At least you used to. Again, fact checkers, pricing, whatever. You know what? I'm gonna go with no. I don't think you do anymore. And
okay, I feel like everything's a la carte for them though.
Oh, they get you. But you know what? If you're hosting Microsoft Stack, Azure is pretty awesome. So, but you pay for it. You know, if you're a penny pincher, go ahead and use AWS. Run your own server. Update the thing. Go ahead and patch all of everything, and then probably pay it back just a different way. But that's just my humble opinion. Okay, so now that we've hit the plus sign, it requires you to restart your site. Otherwise, the plugin won't work. So, okay, the site's restarted. We got it. Now we have a bunch of things we got to. We're now on scavenger hunt mode, and that's the best way I can do it. So you're gonna need this over here. You're gonna need that over there. You're gonna need this here, and you're gonna need to plug them in there, and you're gonna, So you go on the scavenger hunt, and you actually plug them into the plugin. Plug into the plugin. And you put them there. And what this does is on the next screen, it will say, it'll ask you, well, which configured host name would you like to request an SSL for? You select the one or more that you want, because you can actually have, foo.org, foo.com, foo.net, and you can have a separate SSL for each one. This will take care of that for you. And once you do that, it'll reach out to Let's Encrypt on your behalf. It's an agent. And then it installs those certs, and then you can actually find those in your Azure account under the normal spot where you see SSL under your SNI.
You just bind it.
And you just bind them at that point.
Okay.
So once you get back from this scavenger hunt, you lick your wounds, drink your adult beverage of choice. It just works, TM. However, it requires you to earn it.
That was quite a journey.
Okay, so let's just assume that what I'm saying is true at this point. And by the way, Troy Hunt's blog that we started with here, if we scroll through here, his as well, and this is a great read, and we'll have links to these things. He's basically telling you the same thing. Here's his scavenger hunt. Okay, you're going to want to do this. You're going to go over there. You're going to grab this. You're going to do this. Blah, blah, blah. So all this should start looking familiar at this point. But even he says in here, this is a bit of a holy shit. You know, are you kidding me? This is supposed to be, you know, well, I guess it's not supposed to. It's free. That's all Let's Encrypt is. It's free. It didn't say it was going to be easy. It's free. However, so you need an agent because, again, let's dispel the rumor. You can't go here and go just download, type up some stuff and get me my website.
So you can only get it with an agent. That's the only way you can get it.
Yeah. And what is also kind of lost in here, I'm glad I remembered, you have to put a verification file on your server to prove that it's yours. You know, very, very common to do that.
Tie the two together for sure.
So so if you're using a certain CMS that we know of and it intercepts all paths, you have to exclude a certain path also to say, okay, if you're trying to go to the verification directory, you know, so whatever you're...
So that's an omnipresent verification. So you can't just verify once and then take that file down.
I actually couldn't tell you. I left it there. How about that?
Yeah, I would imagine it would have to check for every 90 days.
Maybe. And it's probably, it ain't hurting you. It's like it's got like 20 characters in it, and it's, in fact, I don't even know if it checks the contents. It just checks to see that the file, and it's got a special name. It looks like some hash value. It, you know, hey, is this file there? Okay, well, I guess you're good.
Like a Google verification file. Yeah.
Exactly. Okay. So let's recap real quick. We've done the what happens when we pay, what happens if we want it free, V1, and now let's go with what happens if we don't want to pay V2. And this is where Cloudflare comes into play. And just to show you its legitimacy, Cloudflare hosts the Troy's Have I Been Pwned or whatever website it is. And he actually goes on to say in here that basically he'd still consider the Cloudflare approach versus Let's Encrypt. So you may be saying, well, what is the Cloudflare approach? So let me try to explain it without visuals as best I can, just through words. So typically when you put in baty-barr.com, that name gets resolved by your DNS, and then it gets forwarded to your website. Well, the Cloudflare solution is, well, if I delegate my DNS resolution to Cloudflare, so when I type in baty-barr.com, Cloudflare gets that request.
So Cloudflare does a man-in-the-middle attack on your website.
Well, take away the word attack. It's a willful man-in-the-middle, so to speak. You know, and so traffic gets sent there, and then they forward it on to your Azure site in this particular case. But there's a bit of a problem with that, because you're only encrypted halfway to your server. Does that make sense? It doesn't make sense. And the reason is you're only encrypted from your browser through the interwebs out of your computer to your switch, to your ISP, which then routes it to Cloudflare. And then Cloudflare turns around and sends the request, forwards it on that request to Azure unencrypted. So the man in the middle is still a threat. However, there is a way. There's got to be a better way, right?
So it'd be the man in the middle attack.
So I wrote a blog post on how to close the Cloudflare SSL gap. The gap is from the backside of Cloudflare over to Azure. And so what happens is you can actually get a free SSL cert, just like you in this style, but you get it from Cloudflare, and it's good for like 20 years. And you put in your information, and you will have to go to my blog or somebody else's and go through another scavenger hunt here of things to do. And then you get a key, and then you get an SSL cert, and you upload it and you bind it. And now you are fully end-to-end for 100% free from your browser all the way to the server and back.
So what does Cloudflare get out of all this?
You know, the short answer is I'm not sure. The obvious answer for me is they get to see traffic patterns and you become a lead, right? So you're now on their radar, and they offer more than just this. So here's all their products, and again, we're not endorsed by Cloudflare. I use Cloudflare on my blog, full disclosure, and I do recommend it. But they then allow you to easily add a CDN. They can easily allow you to basically fake out the China problem. Certain things aren't available in China unless we do some crazy stuff. The DNS, they will host that. Here's your SSL.
So you have them do your DNS, and then you get an SSL certificate from them.
Yes.
Why can't you just get an SSL certificate from them that lasts for 20 years and not have to route through? So the route through is their payment, basically.
Yeah. That's a good question. The question would be, once I get
Sorry,
that
I'm so pessimistic about this, but I'm just
no. I mean, I'm with you, but I'll tie a bow on this here in a bit.
Okay.
So you might be able to take that SSL cert and go back to just doing my own DNS through my registrar and blah, blah, blah. That might all just work just fine. You're right. But Cloudflare, for me, I trust it maybe falsely. I mean, it's my blog, right? So that let's do the whole risk assessment on it. Ooh, it's my blog. If it were Chase.com bank, the CTO there is probably going to go, I don't think so. Or the CIO is probably going to,
hopefully.
Guys, we don't need this free. However, the other thing that Cloudflare can do for you is detect a denial of service attack and get in front of it and then say, oh, well, you know what? Let's analyze who's being a bugger, and let's just bit bucket all their requests. And then your site never went down and never saw it. You're welcome. Except that's not free.
Got value. That's got value.
It does, but that's not free. So
I thought that was part of the free SSL.
No. So let's rewind real quick, and then we can
let's review.
Maybe put a bow on this potentially. You can pay, and it's $8 a year. And or $9 a year, and you can just upload it, and you're done. That's simple. However, this will expire whether you want it to or not, and you're going to need to put it on your Google Calendar. And this isn't crazy. This is just a known quantity.
But when you get up to SSLing every single one of your sites, and it might be well in excess of 50.
And it's not just the sites; it's per domain. You may have 5 domains that go to one site, and there's a canonical redirect. You can maybe not redirect, not have an SSL on some of those, but then subdomains. So you're right; it can add up.
Could be a giant pain in the balls.
It could be a giant pain. In fact, that's somebody's job, right? To manage the SSLs, right? And go, oh shit. This expires tomorrow. Quick, hair on fire,
That's usually, or crap, it expired yesterday.
Right, or 10 of them expired yesterday. Now this is okay. Yeah, go ahead and bring me back 2 tacos, guys. I'm gonna have to be here for lunch. Okay, so there's that, and we know the business model here. There's nothing really crazy here. We can do IP based, we can do SNI based. It doesn't matter. So this just works, but it costs. The free option just works too. However, be prepared to go on a scavenger hunt, at least your first time. Know that there's an agent that needs to be in between you and the actual CA. And it renews every 90 days. And once you set this up, there is no, oops, I forgot to renew it. It just works. So there's pros and cons here you can see. And then there's Cloudflare, which is very easy to set up. And we didn't really talk about that. To set this up, you literally log in, you put in a domain, and it scans the DNS for you, and it imports it all. And all you have to do is go to your current DNS and change your name servers over to Cloudflare. And it says it takes 24 hours, but it takes about 20 minutes.
Yeah, round tripping has come way down.
Yeah, and traffic is now coming here. However, it is only half of the leg is encrypted. You have to close the Cloudflare gap by going to my blog, or you know, oh yeah, this was a good day because Troy Hunt tweeted back at me and Dan. Anyway, so yeah, sorry, man crush. Okay, so
What's the URL on that blog?
We'll put it in the description unless you need it ahead of time, but I'll go ahead and send it to you just in case you want to troll me or something. Oops, there. You saw behind the curtain. Okay. All right. So there's that. So they all have pros. They all have cons. Let's kind of go back real quick. Let's just call that $10 just for fun. $10 ain't much, but that will add up. Free ain't bad, and free with a caveat that somebody else is kind of able to sniff your traffic, is the bottom line. So, Bob, that all said, what questions do you have and where do you land on any of this?
I feel like I was asking a lot of my questions as we were going along, so I don't really have any tie them up in a bow type things. I thought it was a great overview of kind of like where we came from, where we're going to with those other services. So that was cool. The deadline and the options, none of that sits well with me. I understand that all the things should be SSL encrypted. I just got to wrap my head around why it's such a circus to get it done.
Well, we don't need Let's Encrypt and we don't need Cloudflare. We just need somewhere to buy an SSL. The intent of Let's Encrypt is to take away cost as your barrier. Cloudflare is also offering that, but Cloudflare's got a kind of a business reason to be kind of going up there. But Cloudflare, yeah, it's whether or not you want to trust it or not. But Let's Encrypt, I think, is a beneficial service, but you will have to kill a few or sacrifice a few kittens along the way of knowledge, and drink some kitten blood or whatever to get yourself psyched and amped up for the pain that you will experience. And I guarantee you, I've done 2 Let's Encrypt now. The third one, whenever that is, I will be smarter, but I will still have to Google and go, what do I got to do again? Where do I find that bit of information? And then,
yeah, there's not going to be a committing of memory of how to do all this. No way.
And it is hosting provider specific. So let's say I go over to AWS. I got to start over. How do I do Let's Encrypt on AWS? I'm sure somebody's figured it out. I'm sure I can follow a blog, and I'm sure I will be like, well, that wasn't so bad after the fact, but it did take me 6 hours to do it or whatever.
I just feel bad for freelancers because they have sites all over the map. Like tons of different hosting providers, platforms, you name it.
Well, let's break it down there. If you are small web developer who's, there's a lot. I'm one of those, right? I'm not.
There's tons of freelance developers out there that have built hundreds of sites.
So here it is. So I would say, step one, ask your client, hey, you got $10 a year to handle. I mean, you already got to do the domain. Can we just bundle them together, right? So $10 for the domain, $10 for SSL. It's $20 a year, guys. Now,
right, I didn't even think about the. I forgot about the whole tell your client it's going to cost some money conversation, but you still got to do it for all of them.
Well, and there's some clients who will resist to be like, why do we need it? And
guaranteed. And then they'll be the first one to pick up the phone and be like, hey, why is Google Chrome saying my site's not secure?
Absolutely. So yeah, yes, totally right. And
damn kids off my lawn.
I am of the impression that if somebody comes to me and says, I want a website, they get SSL, whether it's they want to pay for, lunch or dinner good, whether they want to pay for it or I want. They will put it to you. They will pay for it either way, whether it's $10 a year or for me and my time to go set up Let's Encrypt and or Cloudflare. So let's just go with that.
2020 in my freelance career, I would have done the same exact thing. And thank God I'm not doing that anymore.
So this extends a little outside of just websites, FTP, things like that. I can't even believe.
Triggered. We're not going there. Triggered.
Yeah. So it's not just websites here. So anyway, SSL, all the things. It is painful at first. I will say there's a ton of knowledge out there for your platform. If you have questions about any of this in Azure, I might be able to point you in the right direction in a tweet or something like that. But
if you just want to vent and be angry with me, then I can help you out in a tweet also.
Yeah. So, I mean, SSL, all the things. And I guess, we started the topic with Google and Chrome. I'm glad you brought us back to that because I totally support it. And I think Edge and Firefox and Opera, both users, they should be forced to show, the not secure.
Well, they're going to have to. I mean, what's the marketing for that? Oh, that's okay. Our browser doesn't care if the site's secure or not.
Well,
I mean, you can't rest on that laurel.
I think Google's being, and I hate to use an academia word, but they're being thought leaders on this. Where I don't think, we have to push the users in this direction because they won't care. I don't think users care.
No, for the most part, users are ignorant to that fact.
Absolutely. So, because we've been trained over the years that, we only care at the lock if we're checking out or logging in, and I think that those myths need to be busted. I mean, even Google search, SEO is going to be affected, or if not already, by whether or not you're SSL. So tell that to. So that's the always fun thing. The client, no, we don't need that. But if you tell them, well, you may not rank higher in search. All right, we got all right, let's get a budget for this. It's like, what's going on here? You
know how you're on page 27 right now? If you don't get that SSL, you're going to be on page 28.
Well, that's funny. But we built the website. Why aren't they coming? Marketing and...
That's another topic for another Wednesday night.
All right, Bob, do you have anything else?
This was super fun. I think we should do more of these because I think we get to give a little bit more of our personality and opinion, and it's not quite as stressful as the headline rating.
You know what's not stressful? Subscribing to this channel, and I totally forgot to bring the screen up earlier. Oh yeah, boom.
That's okay, man. If hopefully we had probably 1,500, 2,500 viewers for the live stream. Hopefully they'll all hit that subscribe button and hit that bell too so they get notified because we're starting to go live pretty much on a whim these days. So
so that's very important. So hit the button, hit the bell, because typically we get impulsive, I guess is the word. So
we're getting inspired.
Yeah, I like it. So
by people like you.
Sounded very public broadcasting system. Supporters like you.
Supporters like you.
The Bob and Kevin Show is brought to you by
Sweaty Wieners.
Yes. Oh, no. I'm not going to go with that. Okay.
Pete and his sweaty wieners.
All right, Bob, can you invoke the command?
It's time to bring the lightning.